Wow, the reading and the song were both about the same thing. About being in a situation that may or may not be working right, moving into that situation that's somehow better or more what we're looking for. So, last Sunday was July 4th weekend, and we were talking about the beginning of the Declaration of Independence. Really powerful phrase. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I'm going to change that. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all are created equal, endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, among these the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I didn't make that up. That was Thomas Jefferson. And a whole bunch of people have repeated it since then. And what we were talking about last week, we started at the end. We started with the pursuit of happiness. We were talking about happiness, and we don't have a right to happiness. We have a right to pursue happiness. And we have the freedom to pursue happiness. That's where the liberty part comes in. And this week, it turns out in this country we still have some issues with life. Situations going on in Louisiana and Minnesota and in Texas where that right to life itself was brought into question. And I spent a fair amount of time talking with people in the congregation and my prayer partner and others about the situation and who we are as New Thought practitioners, as metaphysicians, as religious scientists in that situation. Because there's that desire to do something. We can, and we look a fact in the face and we know something better. This needs to change. This is not okay. There's a whole movement going on about Black Lives Matter. And then there's a whole question, police lives matter. And one does not trump the other, pun intended. I like that.
Yeah, I liked it.
All lives matter.
Yes.
All lives matter. And we hear some of the things, the atrocity that happened in Texas was completely unacceptable. And the whole story is these police officers were doing their job protecting the citizenry, and they were singled out just because of that. And that's horrible. And yeah, that's true. And other people were just going about their lives doing what they were doing, and suddenly they lost their lives. And that's unacceptable too. It's not like one is okay and the other is not okay. There's a whole conversation in our country going on about guns and the right to bear arms and the right to have guns and all the rest of that stuff. And you know what? That's true. One of the reasons that we were able to fight and have our independence and get our liberty from those oppressors in Great Britain was because we had the right to bear arms. So that in itself is not a bad idea. However, a couple of things did come to mind this week, and this is me just talking about condition. Maybe it's just that I'm venting. Number one, Texas is an open carry state, and the people who were under attack were police. It wasn't like more guns were going to solve the problem. The second point, the situation got so out of hand that guns couldn't solve it. They had to use a bomb. Now, I lived here in 1985 when the police used a bomb on move. That didn't work so well either. So I could go on a rant and complain and have all these great points, but that's not what it's about. This situation is unacceptable to me. This is not the world I choose to live in. I choose something better. And the question for me is, okay, so what you going to do about it? Damn. Because I can talk about it. I can go to a rally. I can participate in a march. And then I remember who I am. I'm a metaphysician. I'm a spiritual person. The way that we do this is in consciousness. The change happens in consciousness. All of the changes that have ever happened in history start by somebody setting an intention, putting forth that intention in consciousness, and then allowing that to unfold. Sometimes it's instantaneous. Joe had a great day on Thursday. She says that Friday sucked, but she wasn't praying for Friday. In 1776, we set the intention that all are created equal. And we still have, that hasn't finished working itself out yet. It's time. It's time. The other thing that is really, really apparent to me, and when I was working with the teens, the Science of Mind textbook is basically the textbook on religious science. And one of the organizations abbreviated RS. And the kids called it RSBS, which is where you use the language, but you don't mean it. Okay? I'm not about that. I'm not the person who's going to say, oh, well, there's all of these horrible things going on in the world. There's mayhem and people dying and people fighting and arguing. I'm going to go sit on my purple pillow and meditate and pray about it. And then it'll be okay. On the other hand, that's what I do. And miraculous things happen when we bring our conscious intention to them. So in talking to my prayer partner yesterday, what came up for me is that I'm going to bring to my spiritual practice, to my prayer work, to my meditation, the intention for clarity and the willingness to take a step, whatever that step happens to be. I don't know what that step is going to be. God knows what that step is going to be. God knows what this talk is about. I didn't realize I was going to be doing it until an hour ago. God knows what we're doing. But God knows what we're doing. And when we open ourselves up to that possibility, we have the opportunity to be guided that way, to whatever it is that we are bringing to it next. Now, one of the things that I have noticed, one of the resources that I can bring to bear on this, is that I'm one of them. I'm a middle-aged, middle-class, white guy. I'm the only person probably in the country who's allowed to be post-racial, because I don't have a color. I've never been in the position where I've been singled out or profiled, and I'm not going to. That's a privilege for me. And I know there are a lot of middle-aged white guys who take that for granted. Well, I'm not going to. I'm going to use my position, my stature, whatever it is. I don't know what it's worth. But if there's any leverage that's available, that's the willingness I'm bringing to it. I have found myself in my life at the bottom of a power dynamic, where there's a powerful system and I'm at the bottom of the differential, and I don't have any power, and I don't have any traction, and it's like shouting from the bottom of a well. And I understand the fear and the struggle and the pain and the angst that comes from being different, from being singled out, from being isolated, and crying out, but not being paid attention to because I'm not part of the machine. So to whatever extent I'm part of the machine, I'm using that for bringing something new into the world. I am completely open to whatever that change looks like. That's the willingness that I'm bringing to this. Whatever capital I have as myself, it's available and it's up for grabs. I don't know what it looks like. And so when we get into the meditation today, it's going to be about that willingness, that openness to take that next step. What is mine to do? What's that next step for me to have happen? I know the kind of world I want to live in. It is not the one I'm seeing on CNN these days. Take a deep breath. Breathe out. We have this moment. Heard this wonderful interview last week with Norman Lear, who's 93. This guy who brought All in the Family and basically took television and put a toilet in the middle of the set. And let us talk about things in a different way. And somebody asked him for his perspective on life. He says 2 words, over and next. He says, because when something's over, it's over, and it's time to move on to what's next. And when we're between over and next, that's living in the moment. And I thought that was brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. So I am ready to say that whatever's been going on, it's over. We're done with that. We're in this moment now. We're getting ready to move on to next. So if there's anything for you that this has brought up, anything that you want to say, any stand that you want to take now, you're welcome. Come on up to the front and share whatever it is that's on your mind. Adam.
So I think, anyone on Facebook has seen every opinion across the board, both sides, all sides. And one of the things that I'm looking at is, I made a vow about a year ago to not post anything that was going to be, look at this person, aren't they silly or stupid for thinking this, or, political or whatever, to be more positive and have this be. And I saw someone posted a video of a guy who went viral saying, all of my friends who are not going to speak up now when something like this happens, I'm done talking to you. And in my head I was like, no, don't stop talking. We have to keep conversing and realize what, why are you upset? Okay, let me try to understand that. Let me step in your shoes. And then I started thinking the same way, what is my role in this? Personally, I'm not the guy that's going to go and, be an activist or march. It's just not me. But what am I? I'm a person like you, feels spiritually and want to help on a conscious level, because I think that's, you have to have everyone. There's got to be people playing their roles, and there are short-term things that need to be addressed, and you can't do this anymore. There has to be people that say you can't do this anymore, but there also has to be people that say, okay, we need to think about the long term. How are we going to heal the world on a bigger picture versus these isolated incidents? And that was one of the things I came to. Okay, this is my role. That isn't necessarily my role, but this is how I'm able to help in an effective way, because I wouldn't be effective the other way. So something else to think about.
Thank you.
Good morning, family.
Good morning.
I spent a lot of time this week crying because I'm disappointed that we as a nation have not gone from consciousness of race to seeing everyone as common unity, as a community. And when Adam talked about what part do I play in this, is that it's like ripples. As I talked to Reverend Bill and I talked to Dave, and they really had to help me align to the truth. I don't know what is the next step, but I do know that what I can do is to stop seeing race. I come to this church, but I'm from a long line of ministers, Black, Baptist, Pentecostal people. And I consciously, when I began to follow the teachings at Agape in Los Angeles and came to this church, is I wanted to stretch myself beyond seeing race. That, and you all have been incredible in helping me to do that. For so long I was so angry, so very angry, because so much does go on at the bottom of that heap as an African American male, and there's so many assumptions that are made about me as an African American male. But I thank God that I was able to embrace the teachings and come to places like this, centers, where it doesn't matter, that love is just love. So my role in this, and I'm glad I got through 90% of it without crying, my role in this is to look beyond and see everyone. Everyone comes to the table with baggage. Everyone comes to the table with stuff. Everyone comes to the table with our preconceived notions, but I'm challenging myself to not allow myself to accept put downs and name calling and those jokes and those things and those people. There is no those. It's just us, and we're all one. And that's my charge today. Even within my community, where there are many, well, not my community, but people who happen to look like me, I should say. It's all of our communities. But in a community where most of the people look like me, allowing the anger to express but not fester and grow to where it becomes violent. And I'm just praying for the families affected, and infected by this. And I want to thank you all so much as I go on the next leg of my journey, because I've never felt anything other than a spiritual being here. And that's because, this man and his colleague, Dave, Reverend Dave, set that stage and set that feeling tone. And let us continue to let that be like ripples in a pond wherever we go, as representatives of our teachings and our truth. Thank you.
Last year I was going to a teen event and was driving down to Delaware with a 13-year-old African-American boy. And we're going through a sketchy area in Wilmington, and he says, "Reverend Bill, you realize that if we were opposite colors, they'd be stopping you for driving around with a white boy?" I say, "Yeah." Ouch. First of all, that's true. Second of all, that at 13 he has to know that, and that he has to live in that world. Wasn't okay then, it's not okay now. Dave?
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
As the events unfolded this week, nationally and personally, this became real personal to me. I have worked with African Americans the last 10 years, a rap group out of West Philly. I heard their stories. A 17-year-old female R&B artist, I heard her story. I didn't grow up, I grew up poor, 14 years under the poverty line, but at least I came from a trusting environment. So as events unfolded, I physically felt sick the night of Dallas as I watched it unfold. Okay, then Obama the next day gave the statistics. He said, if you're black, you're 30% more likely to get pulled over. You're 3 times more likely to get searched. You're twice as likely to get shot. And then your punishment is 10 times harsher than a white person's. And even though African American population is less than 30% of the population, it's over 50% of the prison population. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. Then I went to traffic court to fight an unjust ticket, and I won, not guilty. I looked around the room, 95% of the room was African American. Now you cannot tell me that 95% of the motorists in Philadelphia are African American. You just can't tell me that, okay? Then I went out. The woman who I love in Boston last night gets carjacked by a person of color. She is a person of color. Enough is enough. I ran into some social activists on Thursday night, and they're going to call me, I hope, because I have a platform now. I have a radio show on Sundays on Black Talk Radio. I'm the only Caucasian at that station. And I'm proud of that fact. And we talked like last night that we have to do something. Bill and I talked about this. We don't know how exactly it's going to unfold, but we have got to do something. Because when I talked to black and white cop last night at Wawa, I went up to him and I said, thank you for protecting our city. And I said to them, you know what? This is not a black-white issue. Up in Boston for 3 months, I heard black-white. No, this is not a black-white issue. This is a we issue. As long as we look at it as black-white issue, it separates us further. We have to take this opportunity to unite. Albert Einstein constantly, you can't solve the problem at the level of consciousness where it was created. We can raise the consciousness. We have the ability to do this more so than any other congregation in this city. And we have to find a way to do this because this is not good. Enough is enough. Black Lives Matter. Guy that I live with, white. He said, why do we have to hear about all the black people getting shot? Well, this is why. It's not that they're saying Black Lives Matter more. That's not the name of the movement. It's Black Lives Matter. So I'm going to do something, I don't know exactly what it is, in conjunction with some other people, because I've had it. I have had it. It's time to take what I call inspired action. In spirit action. You know, that's it. I'm done.
I was sitting down thinking about what I was going to say. First of all, as a parent, I'm afraid. I have 2 sons. And my son's friends, the only thing I keep telling them all the time, be safe. I know we used to always say, somebody pray for me. Prayer is the answer, yes. The New Thought way, yes. But another thing, the cops. All cops don't think alike. It's almost like a lot of them have the attitude, because I have this badge, I could do anything to anybody. And that's where I think that starts. How will they screen them differently? I don't know. But the reality of it is, a lot of cops are walking around, it's almost like having a Klan uniform on. They take it off. But we have to look at who's who and what's what. You know, people that just don't care. And it's very interesting when you talk about the black thing, white thing, and thing like that. I went to a private school coming up. I grew up like you in West Philly. Then my parents moved. I went to Green Street. Well, they didn't move. They moved me to Green Street Friends before we moved. So then I was surrounded by the hippies and the peace movement and all this. And I became a part of people are people. You know, love is love. But again, I'm afraid for my children. I'm afraid for people. As we already know, they're building more jails than they are schools. You know, when you look at that one thing, that's another thing. When we're talking about education, right? Already, they have all these children, right? Children need to be outside playing, in, you know what I mean, getting fresh air and stuff like that. Just because a child is rambunctious, a busy child. I have 3 grandchildren, but 2, the twins, they're diagnosed with attention deficit, ADHD, so they want to medicate them. I think that's another problem that we have, okay? So they're going to they're already labeled. Children in kindergarten are already labeled. Could you imagine a school suspending children in kindergarten? And I know they do say it goes back to the parent, but it's a lot of, it's a lot more as far as the violence. You know, where does this start? Some people are naturally angry because, I mean, you know, I got in a fight with my girlfriend, I got in a fight with my wife, I'm going under the closet, I'm gay and I don't want to tell anybody. And people have all kinds of feelings that they don't know how to express, so they do it through anger. So again, I don't know how to answer it, but I do believe the solution is love, number 1, or 2, as far as prayer. And then thinking about the children that are being medicated, that are being, what word did I use? Labeled. Yeah, because when you think about it, okay, the lady who put that stuff on the last shooting, there was a child in the back seat of that vehicle. I don't know if the child was asleep. I don't know if the child was awake. I don't know. But guess what? If the child was awake, and children at 4 do know what's going on nowadays, could you imagine if that child loved that man, how that child was going to feel? So it's so much to the puzzle. And the answer is love, you know? But anyway, I don't know how the whole world can see it that way.
Deep breath in and let go. I'm going to do a quick prayer before the next song. To take all of these ideas, this newness that is pressing itself forth, and to allow a channel. I know that there is this one power and presence, this one divine love that is God itself, sharing itself through and as and in every part of its creation. Everything, everyone is that divine love showing up in a new and different way. Everyone is God's divine goodness expressed in a different way. So everyone is important. Everyone matters. And everyone is an agent of change. Everyone has that same potential and possibility to bring something new into the world. I know that each one of us here is that divine God essence showing up in a new way. Creative, intelligent, intentional beings, endowed with the ability to set a new intention and bring a new experience into life. Through consciousness, through action, and most importantly, through a combination of both. So I know that what's unfolding now, in a way that nobody specifically understands or can articulate at this particular time, something is happening now to bring something new, something good, something more wonderful into the experience of each one here, into our community, into our city, into our nation, into our world. That divine love is unfolding now. We are ready to let go of the past, the attachments, the need to be right about whatever happened previously, and boldly step forward into what's new and what's next. So I set the intention to be open to this newness, to be open to what's new and what's next, to be open to that divine guidance, and to do so in a state of anticipation for the good that's on its way, and peace and balance and calm as it unfolds. With gratitude for this good, with gratitude for the ability to speak this word of intention, and gratitude for the ability to release it into the same law that has always said yes.
Yes.
I let it be so.
Yes.
And the universe responds and says yes.
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 So it is.
So it is.